Welcome everybody, this is Denny with Why Is This True, and joining me today is Karl Mollison from TeamArchangel.com. And Karl and I are going to continue our series, our channeling series today, and the subject is Joseph Stalin. And so we're getting into maybe more better, widely known actors in human history. This one's fairly recent, but still back far enough so that it might be wise for me to read a bio of Joseph Stalin to kind of give people a frame of reference for what we're doing. So I'll be doing that a little bit later, but first I want to welcome Karl to our video and invite him to introduce himself and talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. So thanks, Karl.
Thank you, Jenny. It's my pleasure to participate in this endeavor. We're really seeking truths and learning about how things really work in the world. And this brings another dimension that most people are not privy to. Many would not believe is real. And I certainly get that. I was a scientist all my life and quite a critical thinker, very skeptical and very much data-oriented, reality-oriented, right brain was kind of dominant and to the left brain, show me, prove it to me, and so on. So I get all the people who are out there doubting this, who maybe have stumbled on it or someone persuaded them to take a look, and this is the first thing they see. God forbid, this is pretty far out stuff. So I commiserate. I've been there, and this is a process for each one of us to learn our way to a faith in things we can't see or sense with our normal mechanisms. And that's what we're tapping into. And we have to do that because the normal modes aren't going to be reliable for this kind of exercise. Everything is filtered and distorted, manipulated, and controlled in a way that the truth doesn't always make it into the textbooks. It's just the reality we're dealing with. And it's been this way all through recorded history. In fact, much of history has been unrecorded through theft, through sabotage. The burning of the library in Alexandria was a huge loss to the planet of much ancient wisdom and knowledge. And that was not accidental. So here we go again. We're trying to bring forward things and move humanity forward. So where I come in this exercise is my personal interest and my alliance with the divine realm to work for the light. And it turns out, much to my surprise, the things I've been working on for some years now to help people with spirit manipulation and corruption, which is legion, it's rampant. Most people have some kind of dark spirit attachments. This is a plague. It's a kind of parasite. And in addition, we have a problem with extraterrestrial encroachment. And most people would find that equally fantastic, but I assure you it is real. And when I started to work to help people with problems as a hypnotist, doing emotional clearing and healing facilitation with guided imagery and so on, I would bump into these phenomena. And it showed me very directly that this is real. And about 5% of my clients have an alien implant. I didn't expect to see that. I didn't go with that agenda. It's just incidental. It's an incidental finding, but it's real. That's 1 out of 20 people. That's a huge number. So we've got these things plaguing us in the background. It's covert, but it's important, and it takes a toll. And people through history have been subjected as well to manipulation by these two forces. And they cause havoc in society, and that's purposeful. They're always trying to drag down humanity, keep us contained, keep us from causing too much trouble for them, so they can live off of us and take what they want from our society, manpower as slaves and whatnot, playthings, food, and also from the planet, natural resources and so on. So as someone concerned about emotional health and well-being, I know the phenomena are real, and I've worked to develop a protocol to take care of these things. And I've gotten a lot of help from the divine realm to refine this protocol, to remove all sorts of entity involvements, direct and indirect, implants of various kinds, energetic manipulations, and genetic alterations, which have been extensive of the human genome. And that has dimmed us down in terms of our intuitive reach connecting to the divine realm. That feeds the blithe ability to just dismiss religion as kind of fictitious, because people don't feel it, they don't sense it, they're not sensing a presence of a divine being. So it sounds like a fairy tale, and they can let go because they don't think they're losing anything. Well, we've already lost the major benefits because we've been blinded. And that was an intervention and a corruption. So as a channeler, I can tune in to other consciousness. And I do this with people, I do it with animals, I do it with extraterrestrials, I do it with divine beings, including Creator. And this gives an unprecedented window, except in a few cases, with access to high-level knowledge and wisdom. And that comes with lots of rules and safeguards and constraints. We're still supposed to do this all on our own. We can't give people the magical solutions to things and just hand it over. We need the divine realm's help. We have to ask for that. And that's the number one thing we can do, is to make requests for their assistance. And I get this all the time. And there's great urgency attached to that message because time may be running out. And I know people don't want to hear this. People want to think, oh, we got lots of time. And I thought that myself. This has been going on for thousands of years. So I'll do my part and then I'll move on. And someone else will come along and they'll do a little bit more. And I wasn't in a hurry. Now I'm in a hurry because I've been told this is not only serious, but things are darkening. The shift in consciousness is intended to meet that challenge and overcome it. That's why the divine realm is getting more actively involved in awakening people. I get messages from people all the time. You know, I think there's something really important I'm supposed to do with my life, but I don't know what it is. That's the awakening. You're being tapped. God is literally talking to you gently from behind the scenes within your deep mind to go looking. Go and seek something important to apply yourself to, maybe different from anything you've done. Well, this is something different than most people have done. Pray for humanity.
Or even thought about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Pray that humanity is delivered from this negativity and come and help us to the greatest extent possible and raise everyone up, our enemies included. This isn't about punishment. It's not about going to war. It's about going to peace. It's about going to true enlightenment, which means dealing with the difficulties. It's not about sitting around and being happy. That's a false goal. It truly is. We'll have that automatically when we're out from under negativity. So that's just a part of the balance of things and the vibrations and so on. But we're far from that state of being right now. Right. So hopefully learning from those who come before can be very instructive on what has been done to us, because they have a very unique perspective, many of them who are in positions of authority. And it didn't turn out the way they thought it would because they were hit from behind or from the side unawares, and some were taken out, and so they can speak to these dilemmas and what it means for us now, here today.
Right.
So these are very, very relevant cautionary tales about what's at stake, what the opposition can bring to bear that we need to know about.
Right.
And they'll offer help and guidance as well. And we always seek that. And it's typically this same kind of message I'm describing. But you'll hear it for yourself if you stay with us here today, I suspect. Even from Joseph Stalin.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, this for a lot of people just looking in, they're going to think, well, this is some kind of historical exercise. And it is to a certain extent. But it's kind of like what we were doing before. It's setting the scene, but it's also allowing a major player who's set things in motion that we're still dealing with today, his perspective for a current state of affairs. So it's not something that's relegated to some ancient past, like your great parents, great grandparents, episodes and the things they dealt with. It's germane, but it's not really what this is about. What this is about is well, it's going to actually operate on many levels, because it is historical. It's spiritual. It's the perspective of the light beings, and it's also gives us an indication of what is probably happening right today, because the same kinds of things are happening now, only they're just a little bit worse, and that's why there's this sense of urgency, because things are coming to a head right now. So this Joseph Stalin, we're kind of like upping the game, so to speak, and you'll see why. So with that, Karl, this bio is a little bit long, but I think it's going to be kind of necessary because there's a lot of people out there who only have a vague understanding of who this person was, unfortunately, thanks to our government schools. But this is just something I have to do because I'm aware of, people's, in general terms, people's knowledge about this person and a lot of other historical figures. So Joseph Stalin was born in 1878, and he passed away in 1953, in March 1953. This is taken from Wikipedia, by the way, and I'm pretty much reading it verbatim from Wikipedia. There's one little comment at the end that's not from there, but I'll tell you when I'm done here. Okay, so he was a Georgian-born Soviet revolutionary and political leader, governing the Soviet Union as its dictator from the mid-1920s until his death in 1953. He served as General Secretary of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union from 1922 to 1952, as Premier of the Soviet Union from 1941 to 1953. Ideologically, a Marxist and a Leninist, Stalin helped to formalize these ideas as Marxism-Leninism, while his own policies became known as Stalinism. Stalin, by the way, means man of steel. He was born to a working-class family in Gori Russian Empire. As a youth, Stalin joined the Marxist Russian Social Democratic Labor Party. He edited the party newspaper Pravda and raised funds for Vladimir Lenin's Bolshevikfaction via robberies, kidnappings, and protection rackets. He was repeatedly arrested. He underwent several internal exiles, and after the Bolsheviks gained power in the October Revolution of 1917, established the Russian Soviet Republic, Stalin sat on the governing Politburo during the Russian Civil War and helped form the Soviet Union in 1922. Despite Lenin's opposition, Stalin consolidated power following Lenin's death in 1924. During Stalin's tenure, socialism in one country became a central concept in Soviet society, and Lenin's new economic policy was replaced with a centralized command economy, industrialization, and collectivization. These rapidly transformed the country into an industrial power, but disrupted food production and contributed to the famine of 1932 to 1933, particularly affecting the Ukraine. To eradicate those regarded as enemies of the working class from 1934 to 1939, Stalin organized the Great Purge, in which hundreds of thousands, including senior political and military figures, were interned in prison, camps, exiled, or executed. Stalin's government promoted Marxist Leninism abroad through the Communist International and supported anti-fascist movements throughout Europe during the 1930s, particularly in the Spanish Civil War. However, in 1939, they signed a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, resulting in their joint invasion of Poland. Germany ended the pact by invading the Soviet Union in 1941. Despite initial setbacks, the Soviet Red Army halted the German incursion and captured Berlin in May of 1945, which ended World War II in Europe. The Soviets annexed the Baltic states and helped establish pro-Soviet Marxist-Leninist governments throughout Eastern Europe. The Soviet Union and the United States emerged as the two world superpowers, and a period of tensions began between the Soviet-backed Eastern Bloc and U.S.-backed Western Bloc known as the Cold War. Stalin led his country through its post-war reconstruction, during which it developed a nuclear weapon. In these years, the country experienced another major famine and a period of anti-Semitism, which reached its peak in 1952 to 1953. Doctor's plot. Stalin died in 1953 and was succeeded by Nikita Khrushchev, who denounced his predecessor and initiated a de-Stalinization process throughout the Soviet society. Widely considered one of the 20th century's most significant figures, Stalin was a subject of pervasive personality cult within the international Marxist-Leninist movement, for whom Stalin was a champion of socialism and the working class. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, Stalin has retained popularity in Russia and Georgia as a victorious wartime leader who established the Soviet Union as a major world power. Conversely, his autocratic government has been widely denounced for overseeing mass repressions, hundreds of thousands of executions, and millions of non-combatant deaths throughout his policies. So this was taken from another Wikipedia site. I'm paraphrasing here. Scholarly estimates put the total number of deaths attributable to Stalin's rule right around 20 million people. There's been quite a bit of research on this. It's a difficult area. Some estimates are lower than 20 million. I've seen some estimates as high as 50 million people. Joseph Stalin did need a spirit rescue, and we have 7 questions today. And if you have anything else to say, Karl, I invite you to do it now. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I just want to comment on what you were just saying. I didn't say anything about this before, but one of the other things I do is spirit rescue for people who are trapped as an earthbound spirit and not able to make it back to the higher astral plane. And this is a very common eventuality. 1 out of 3 people do have trouble for a variety of reasons. And it's not because they're excluded and kept from going to heaven. They're never judged and cast down. That is a false teaching designed to instill fear in people, discourage them, create the worst possible expectation on the way to the light that you might be rejected. That's not the good state of mind you want to be in when you want to get to heaven. So because your power of consciousness influences you all the time, here, there, and in between. It's our inner motor that makes things go. So he was one of these unfortunates. Not too surprising, because most people who are troubled, who have difficulty, who cause trouble for others, are out of alignment. And their odds of reaching back to the higher astral go down because of that state of being. And that's a self-choice in most cases, because of prior experience, the karma of their history. But also, it can be a wild card that comes in through spirit corruption and extraterrestrial manipulation, or both. And we all get both during our lives. So he needed to be given this assistance.
Okay.
Right.
And then we might also state, because this comes up quite a bit, is that there's another false teaching out there about how going to the light when you pass is actually a trap to get you into another reincarnation. So there's a warning out there in the New Age community, in some sectors, so to speak, where they say, well, when you die, you never want to go to the light, because that's a trick, it's a trap, and that gets you back into this endless reincarnation cycle where you're never going to be free from the earth plane. You're always going to be returned to the earth plane by virtue of the fact that we've been told by religious figures that we go to the light when we die, and that's not. So you don't want to do that. You want to retain your sovereignty and go somewhere else, but don't go to the light, because otherwise you're just going to be reincarnated again. So that's another. My understanding is that that's another false teaching. You might want to comment about that a little bit. I think you've run into that too.
Oh yes, and that is a trap itself. This is the cleverness of the opposition, that they can take teachings like this, plant them in the ideas of people. They do this through channelers all the time, who they've co-opted. Every channeler gets a minder, someone to babysit them, an extraterrestrial psychic. And unless they're especially careful in maintaining a true spiritual connection, if they're just naive and they go out and intend to connect, an interloper will be right there to answer that call. And the divine realm has to let that happen. Just like a criminal that you might encounter. It's your doing, it's your consequence. So there's a lot of disinformation, and much of it is cleverly designed to turn things around, to limit people, create a roadblock of some kind. There's all kinds of these things out there.
Right.
One thing I get all the time as a practitioner who charges for my services is, well, why are you charging money for this? I mean, shouldn't this be free? This is another disinformation that's been spread through the spiritual community and the religious community down through the ages. Money is tainted. It's evil. Anyone who wants money is not to be trusted. They're evil. So what does that do? It disempowers all of the spiritual people, because they can't make a living, and they're not really fully respected, because they're always, living from hand to mouth, and almost begging for
right,
for money and support, and they never have money to really have any kind of visibility or broader reach,
right?
Because it's not like a corporate force that can go out and earn great sums for what they do and so on. This is very clever. I mean, Creator told me this recently because I was asking about someone's complaint again. And Creator said, what a clever way to disempower the religious, the spiritual, to make them believe they have to work for nothing. Well, go try that. Yeah. In any field of endeavor, go work for money. See how far you get. Someone will want to, get married, and then what? Have a kid. If you're not making income, forget it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean to digress, but
that's okay. Okay, so we have 7 questions. I think we've got for some people there's going to be some surprises. For some people who've been following us, there's going to be some not surprises. But anyway, 7 questions, and you'll see why I had difficulty drafting these questions as we get into it. But we don't spoil the show here. So with that, I'd like to invite you to start, Karl.
All right. So just take me a moment to get in the right stage of consciousness and to put safety around the work, which is very, very important. I do all my channeling through Creator and ask Creator to connect me to that person and maintain safety and security and privacy around the work until it's completed. Then, we're going public with the end product. But to do the channeling is quite important to be sure of who you're talking to. And it's not easy these days. It really isn't. Because the interlopers, they have our knowledge base right at their fingertips. They can talk all day long about spiritual things, religious things, biblical things, whatever flavor. They'll feed you back the ideology you want to hear, but they'll keep you limited. You
Right.
won't be on the entry level.
Right.
That's their game, So it all sounds good. It won't teach you how to solve real problems in a real way.
Right.
It'll keep you yearning, keep you hoping, keep you manifesting and reaching upward. And that's all nice talk. But it's just talk. So that's the limitations.
Okay.
This is Joseph Stalin speaking.
Thank you for joining us. Were you killed and replaced by a reptilian? If so, when did this happen?
This is a sad reality about my existence in my recent lifetime. This was not my plan for it to happen and was not my desire to have this kind of situation. I was in earnest and a true believer in the cause of my country and very much wanting a more effective political organization that would use the power of the people in a way to bring justice and a movement forward and create a greater civilization that was entering the modern era with fresh vigor. I never intended to have a government so in control as to manipulate people to the nth degree and create untold misery. That was the doing of the imposter who stepped in. So when I became the national leader and taking over the reins, the replacement was done. So from the very start of my leadership, in a true sense, when the reins of power were mine, it was no longer me. This was a reptilian being, an extraterrestrial shapeshifter. They have this capability to create the physical being that is identical to a human through altering their makeup, utilizing the DNA of the human target. And then the memory is downloaded from the original human. So they have every resemblance down to the smallest degree, including the fingerprints, but also the vocal characteristics, and the habits and mannerisms are a part of those aspects of the emotionality and the character and so on. Those are all transferable, but then under the control of an alien intelligence. So this is the ultimate mimic or impersonator. It is not someone putting on a costume and makeup and altering their speech to mimic the person they are impersonating. This is an exact replica without a connection to that individual's soul. The driving force, the intentions, and the agenda of the imposter are entirely in service to the extraterrestrial cause. This is what I unleashed with my presence and having reached that level. And I can tell you that if it were not me, the same fate would have befallen anyone else stepping into that position. This was planned and is routine and is done all around the world for leaders in any nation of great consequence in terms of the geopolitics, stores of wealth, and positions of influence to affect great numbers of people. Those are the targeted individuals who are subjected to this kind of manipulation. My situation, therefore, was very routine in its inception. The circumstances then conspired to make the aftermath especially dire, and that is quite regrettable. You must appreciate that I have been catching up on current events since my recent spirit rescue, because I was taken out of action in the early 20s of the last century and have been on the sidelines in limbo, disconnected from human culture altogether, disconnected from everything except my own thoughts. And even those were not normal because I was hampered in being without the usual means of expression, not having a physical body any longer, being a mass of energy, and being sort of floating in the ether. So I have had a whirlwind update of human history over the intervening period of time, which has been almost a century now. Although my physical imposter died in the 1950s, that was the imposter and not myself. That was the replica. So I have been out of the action all this time, but I can speak to what has happened and give you my perspective quite directly, as well as the advice of Creator, who is always with me as a light being and is always involved in any interaction with someone in the physical plane. And this is for purposes of maintaining a close watch and careful consideration of the rules for transferring information and knowledge. They are always within certain limits because the human undertaking must proceed under human power with human control and human awareness largely. There are exceptions, but those exceptions are themselves human orchestrated. This is illustrated by your reaching out at this moment to myself. You are going beyond the normal boundaries of human thought to reach directly into the divine realm and have a conversation with a light being who has lived previously, presuming they will answer your call and be available to converse with you. This is highly unusual and is a very, very rare event. And this makes this a special opportunity. We are honoring the call because you are asking. We cannot go and stop someone on the street and begin talking with them and sharing our perspective on what has happened over the intervening century. This would be a disruption and would cause confusion and likely great fear and would serve no real purpose because the person would not understand or be open to a lecture on the issues facing humanity coming from out of the blue, so to speak. So we are doing a unique thing here, and I am quite happy to support you in every way that I can. I am not happy with all that has transpired and what was done to my people. You can be sure of this.
Thank you. Did you have any warning or suspicion that something like that could happen to you?
I had no warning whatsoever. This was a type of activity completely outside my awareness. There were no discussions among any of my compatriots of any kind of outside influence on things. We did not take spirits seriously, and we were never thinking about extraterrestrials. So this was something that we could not have foreseen, let alone guarded against. And I can tell you that this cannot be prevented by humans, even with foreknowledge and awareness of what can happen. It can only be prevented by the divine realm if humans request such protection. That is because of the difference between your level of awareness and understanding of the forces and technologies that can be brought to bear to bring this about. You're dealing with advanced civilizations millions of years ahead of you in every respect but one. And that one difference is in your spiritual reach, which they do not have. That is your secret weapon you can use, but they cannot. They are not aware, nor do they believe in this. When they see humans talk about the divine and do their prayer, they think this is a fairy tale themselves. when people turn away and believe in the view of the atheists, they are descending to the level of the interlopers, and this is what they wish to have happen. Not so much because they fear God doing something to oppose them, but they want you to give up all hope, including your fairy tales. So this is a trap to avoid. And I was not aware of this, nor was I in a position to have any resistance mounted personally or with any kind of outside support. This is typical. And in fact, the regimes all around the world have a hierarchy that is largely extraterrestrial and handed down from generation to generation of imposters, sometimes through members of the same family, as is done in the monarchies, but also by any figure who engages widespread popular support and is a rising political star. They too will be replaced if they can serve the extraterrestrial agenda or pose some kind of threat if they are not constrained in this way.
Okay, thank you. Were there significant persons aligned with the divine realm in your circle of power who survived the purges instigated by the reptilian replacement?